In the black vacuum of space, where time slows and shadows stretch forever, a quiet race has begun. One not of speed, but of ambition. And at the center of it, standing tall and unflinching on opposite sides of Earth, are China and Russia. Their eyes are not just set on the moon, they're carving it up, planning not just to visit, but to stay. And as the West hesitates, they are building something that could change the future of space forever. When word first broke that China was preparing to build a nuclear power plant on the moon, it sounded like science fiction. Not a rover, not another orbiter, a power station. But within days, the news became something more formidable, something with weight, because this wasn't just China's vision anymore. It was Russia's too. Behind closed doors, in corridors of quiet diplomacy, the two nations had been meeting, talking, planning. And now, under the dim lights of an uneasy world, they had signed a deal. A pact. A pledge to do something no country has ever done. Plant nuclear roots on a celestial body. This isn't a new rivalry born overnight. It's the rekindling of a vision. One they started mapping out in 2021, when China announced the International Lunar Research Station. The ILRS would be a robotic outpost nestled at the moon's south pole, where eternal shadows hide frozen secrets, and sunlight skims the jagged mountains just enough to make survival barely plausible. Russia was supposed to be a partner from the start, but when the war in Ukraine erupted, that fragile alliance vanished from the headlines. It didn't vanish from the plan. Now it's back, and stronger, because what they're building isn't just a scientific outpost, it's a stake in the ground, a declaration. While the rest of the world debates, pivots, and reorganizes budgets, China and Russia are quietly laying down infrastructure, the kind that doesn't just power lights or antennas, but powers empires. The moon is a brutal place. 14 Earth days of searing sunlight, followed by 14 of utter darkness and a cold so deep it cracks steel and silences life. Solar panels become useless after a week. Batteries are heavy and vulnerable. So if you want to survive, truly survive, you need nuclear. And Russia, for all its scars and struggles, remains a master of that technology. Their state-run Rosatom is the largest producer of nuclear reactors on Earth, and when paired with 7 decades of spaceflight experience, they become something even more dangerous. Competent. Their reactor won't be large. It can't be. Weight is everything. So this nuclear plant will likely be a shrunken version of terrestrial designs, a compact and rugged machine meant to weather the moon's harsh rhythms. It won't be pretty. It won't be easy. It might not even work the first time. But if it does, it will send a clear message to the rest of us. They got there first. The moon does contain uranium. Yes, that ancient fuel used to split atoms and power cities. But for now, it's more likely they'll ship the pellets from Earth. Rockets loaded with capsules of radiance, hurtling toward the sky on engines built not for exploration, but permanence. Because make no mistake, this is about staying. According to China's roadmap, construction will unfold between 2031 and 2035. But they don't intend to wait until the future arrives. They want to build everything here on Earth first, the station, the power core, and launch it in pieces. 5 launches are already planned using their Long March 9, a super heavy-lift rocket still in development, meant to rival Starship. This will be their moon train. Each launch, a carriage. Each module, a piece of a future most people haven't even begun to imagine. It's ambitious. Probably too ambitious. Because while these plans are grand, the moon does not yield easily. No one has ever built a permanent base there, let alone wired it with nuclear energy. Even NASA, the old titan of lunar lore, is facing cutbacks and delays that seem more desperate with every passing month. The contrast is stark. While China and Russia chart the dark corners of lunar ambition, NASA is quietly downsizing its dreams. The Gateway Station, once a symbol of American presence orbiting the moon, has nearly faded into vapor, even though parts of it have already been built. The SLS moon rocket, once hailed as the next Saturn V, is limping toward its second and third flights, but there's doubt they'll even happen as planned. After Artemis 3, which aims to finally land humans on the surface, the program could be shelved altogether. But there is one glimmer left, one wild card: SpaceX. And even there, the story turns chaotic. Starship, Elon Musk's monstrous creation, the rocket meant to ferry humans to the moon and Mars, has struggled. The last two test flights didn't end in triumph. They ended in flames. Catastrophic failures in space. Fireballs raining over oceans. Bold steps forward, only to be followed by brutal setbacks. But the company presses on. That's what SpaceX does. And now they're readying another attempt. Starship's ninth flight is prepped and waiting. The booster they're using? Not new. It's a refurbished piece of history, a rocket that already flew, landed, and lived to tell about it. This marks the first time SpaceX will attempt to refly a Super Heavy booster. If it works, it proves that rapid reusability isn't a dream. It's a reality. But SpaceX isn't taking chances. This time, the booster won't return to the tower. It will crash down in the ocean, far from sensitive infrastructure, in case things go wrong again. This decision was baked into their new FAA license. A quiet, practical admission. We're still testing, still learning, still falling, but aiming higher each time. In the meantime, the upper stage, the sleek, stainless steel bullet known as Ship 35, has been tested again and again on the ground. Static fire after static fire. One test even sent parts flying from under its engines, a reminder that every second in rocketry is borrowed time. But they seem to have patched the wounds. The next fire test was clean, controlled, silent, even in its violence. Ship 35 is ready, and as this battle for the moon escalates, the bigger picture comes into focus. Because while China and Russia pour resources into lunar permanence, NASA is preparing for something darker. It had always been about more than just footprints on the moon. In the shadows of great rockets and shimmering domes of lunar bases, a deeper game was being played. A race not just for space, but for dominance in the unseen layers of geopolitics. As China and Russia charted their course toward a permanent presence on the moon, the rest of the world watched, some in awe, others in quiet anxiety. For decades, space had been a playground for dreams and cooperation, but now those dreams were morphing into strategies. Blueprints for power plants and lunar laboratories weren't just science fiction anymore. They were statements of intent. And as the silent gray regolith of the moon prepared to host its first artificial suns, the very ground under our feet on Earth seemed to shift with uncertainty. Russia, despite facing crippling sanctions and political isolation, found in China a partner not bound by Western constraints. What they lacked in trust, they compensated for in ambition. Russia brought nuclear expertise honed through generations of reactor construction and deep space missions. China brought its iron-willed momentum, its rocket program growing bolder and more self-reliant with each launch. Together, they sketched out a new frontier, one where the moon would no longer be neutral territory, but a strategic outpost, fortified, autonomous, and glowing with power not from the sun, but from the core of splitting atoms. But dreams need logistics, and building a nuclear reactor on the moon isn't like constructing one in Siberia or the Gobi Desert. Earth's reactors are anchored in gravity, fed with a constant supply chain, maintained by technicians. On the moon, there would be no engineers in hard hats, no last-minute deliveries. The air is non-existent, the nights span weeks, and the cold bites down past -200 degrees Celsius. It's a place where even batteries lose their will to work. So nuclear becomes not a choice, but a necessity. Still, that necessity comes with shadows. The partnership has decided the first reactors will be built on Earth, then launched in modules to be assembled remotely by robotic systems. It's a delicate dance between engineering and risk. Every part must be lighter, tougher, and smarter. Even the uranium fuel, likely sourced from Earth initially, must be packaged with a kind of paranoia, for a launch accident involving radioactive material is the kind of nightmare no nation wants televised. But eventually, they aim to extract their own fuel from lunar soil. The moon, as it turns out, holds uranium and other radioactive elements scattered across its crust, waiting like buried treasure beneath 1,000 craters. The timeline, though, remains a wild bet. China claims it will begin construction of the ILRS, the International Lunar Research Station, between 2031 and 2035. It's hard to believe, especially considering no human structure has ever survived, let alone functioned, on the lunar surface for more than a few weeks. But there's something unsettling in how committed they seem. They've already allocated 5 launch missions using their Long March 9 rocket, a monster of a spacecraft that dwarfs even the Falcon Heavy and rivals the scale of SpaceX's Starship. The ambition is naked. If successful, it won't just be a scientific achievement, it will be a paradigm shift. For the first time, human technology will hum with nuclear power on a celestial body beyond Earth. And while one half of the world lays foundations for permanence, the other half seems to be running out of steam. The United States, for all its past glories, Apollo, Shuttle, Mars rovers, has found itself at a crossroads. NASA, once the gold standard for exploration, is now facing budget cuts and shifting priorities. The Gateway Station, once imagined as a stepping stone between Earth and Moon, is fading into limbo. The Artemis missions, while still technically on the books, feel more like promises from a fading dream. Artemis 2 may fly around the Moon in 2026. Artemis 3 might put boots on the surface by 2027, but no one dares place firm bets. And beyond that, silence. The Space Launch System, NASA's lumbering answer to deep space transportation, is already being retired before it ever really took flight. Artemis 3 is its swan song. It's an expensive, over-engineered relic in a world that's evolving toward reusable rockets and rapid iteration. Its fate tells a bigger story, one of slow decay, of the weight of bureaucracy crushing boldness, and that burden is only growing heavier. Meanwhile, SpaceX, the last real hope for American-led space exploration, presses forward, but not without stumbles. The Starship program, Elon Musk's passion project, has seen glory and disaster in almost equal measure. Their last 2 test flights ended not with triumphant touchdowns, but with fireworks, upper stages breaking apart in the high atmosphere, raining debris into the Atlantic. The dream remains alive, but fragile. Every launch is a gamble. Every re-entry, a dare against physics. Still, the company moves forward. For Flight 9, they're reusing the Super Heavy booster from January's Flight 7, the first time such a thing has been attempted. It's a gamble within a gamble. No one knows how a reused booster will behave. It could ignite a new era of rapid, low-cost space launches, or it could fail spectacularly, erasing months of progress. In a bid to reduce risk, SpaceX has chosen not to land the booster on its high-tech catch arms this time, but instead let it splash into the ocean. The message is clear: caution now, progress later. Ship 35, the third in the Starship 5-2 line, has been put through its paces. Static fires, engine tests, thermal simulations, it's all being tested with a feverish urgency. The recent tests suggest some of the problems that plagued earlier flights have been fixed, but no one will know for sure until the engines roar to life on the launch pad and that silver needle of a ship slices through the sky. But even if Starship flies, even if it survives re-entry, there's still a storm brewing back at home. NASA, staring down the barrel of austerity, is being forced to make brutal decisions. The International Space Station, once the shining beacon of global cooperation, is beginning its long farewell. Its retirement is scheduled for 2030, but the signs of its decline are already showing. In a cost-cutting move, NASA will reduce the number of astronauts it sends to the ISS from 4 to 3. It seems like a small change until you realize how much science and maintenance relies on every pair of hands in orbit. Russia will continue sending 3 cosmonauts, but America is pulling back. Crew Dragon launches, once symbols of pride and capability, are now measured against spreadsheets. The decision, painful as it is, comes with a greater purpose: redirecting funds. Because there is one last costly task NASA must complete: deorbiting the ISS. The station cannot remain in orbit forever. Its mass, the aging modules, the growing risk of collisions, it all adds up to a dangerous liability. When it comes down, it must be controlled. NASA has tapped SpaceX to design and build a vehicle that will guide the ISS into a safe demise, somewhere in the vastness of the ocean. The contract, $850 million, and the money must come from somewhere. So science programs are slashed, Staff at mission control centers like Johnson and Marshall are let go. Careers built over decades are quietly closed, replaced by silence. Missions to the ISS will stretch from 6 months to 8, saving on launches, reducing the need for resupply. Everything is stretched, thinned, made to last a little longer. And through it all, a sense of quiet urgency builds. China and Russia are not waiting. Their plans are bold, dangerous even, but they are moving. And every moment lost in indecision feels like a step behind in a race that no one can afford to lose. There's a moment in every great shift when you realize the world you thought you lived in has changed, and you missed it happening. Not with a bang, not with a countdown, but in the quiet choices, the faded headlines, the misdirected funding. That moment is now. While the Western world negotiates spreadsheets and trims launch schedules, China and Russia are laying the groundwork for a new paradigm. One where space is not a shared dream, but a strategic theater. The moon is no longer a symbol of exploration. It's becoming a cornerstone of power. And as they finalize their plans to ignite the first nuclear reactor on the lunar surface, the question is no longer if or when, but whether anyone else will still have a seat at the table. That reactor, capable of delivering 100 kilowatts of power for 10 years, is not just a generator. It's a declaration. Designed to be deployed without humans, its robotic assembly system will position it among pre-selected craters, shielded from radiation and thermal extremes. And once operational, it will make possible what solar panels cannot: 24/7 power in the dark and biting cold of a 2-week lunar night. This isn't just about keeping the lights on. It's about running extractors, refineries, greenhouses, autonomous labs, systems that demand energy, consistency, permanence. But to build it, China and Russia will need to push past a wall of technical and political challenges. Radiation shielding must be lightweight yet effective. Heat dissipation in vacuum conditions must be solved without convection. The reactor must endure micrometeorite impacts, moonquakes, and the abrasive dust that clings like static death to every surface. And it must be launched, an act that will ignite global debate. The political blowback of launching a nuclear reactor into space is not something either country is eager to explain to the UN, but they're doing it anyway, quietly, carefully, deliberately. While the world debates legality, China has already begun launching lunar payloads under the Chang'e program. Chang'e 6 recently returned with samples from the far side of the moon, the first time in human history such a feat was accomplished. It wasn't just a scientific milestone, it was a message. They landed where no one else had, retrieved what no one else could, and brought it back not with fanfare, but with purpose. And they're not done. Chang'e 7 is set to explore the lunar South Pole, scouting for water ice. Chang'e 8 will begin constructing infrastructure for the joint lunar base. Each mission builds on the last, each step more confident than the one before. This is not a Cold War redux. It's colder, quieter, sharper. The United States is not racing, it's retreating. Artemis remains symbolic, but it is no longer the spearhead of American might in space. SpaceX, for all its ambition, cannot do it alone. Private companies do not fund lunar reactors. Nations do. And while NASA struggles to keep its hands on the wheel, China is pressing forward with a vision that spans decades. By 2045, the Chinese Lunar Research Station is expected to be fully operational. A decade later, a larger, more permanent base, complete with crew rotation and commercial partners, is planned. If all goes according to the roadmap, they'll have laid the foundations for a new type of civilization. Not one of flags and footprints, but of factories and fuel, science and sovereignty. And the West may be left watching from a distance, grounded by caution and cost. Yet not everyone is asleep at the wheel. Whispers have begun in Europe. The ESA is quietly evaluating the feasibility of joining the Chinese-Russian station, if only to avoid exclusion. India, fresh off the success of Chandrayaan-3, is positioning itself as a neutral but capable partner. Japan, long allied with NASA, has also expressed interest in joining multiple lunar initiatives. The alliances of Earth are being redrawn not in war rooms, but in mission control rooms. Back on Earth, the final phase of the ISS looms large. Its fiery descent into the Pacific, sometime around 2030, will mark the end of an era, and it will leave a vacuum, physical and symbolic. No permanent outpost in orbit, no multinational crew broadcasting unity from above, just the memory of what once was. NASA hopes commercial space stations will rise to fill the void, but none are ready, not yet, and perhaps not in time. Meanwhile, as Earth orbits continue, another signal reaches mission control, a silent, encrypted burst of data from an older probe. It's Voyager, still alive, still transmitting, a relic from another time, whispering across the cosmic gulf. But what it says doesn't comfort anyone. Its instruments, detecting subtle variations in the heliopause, hint at disturbances, unexplained, growing, and not matching any known models. Scientists are baffled. Some suspect dark energy interactions. Others think it's merely an error. But in the control room, an engineer mutters, "We're going blind just as we're stepping into the dark." Because the truth is, we don't know what's coming. The moon might be a beginning, or it might be a blinding detour. Nuclear reactors in space carry risks we have barely begun to understand. Dust and radiation could cripple systems. A reactor failure could scatter contamination across the only place within reach beyond Earth. But China and Russia believe the benefits outweigh the risks. They're betting everything on the belief that the first to build the infrastructure will set the rules. And perhaps they're right. Because whoever builds the power plants will run the habitats. Whoever runs the habitats will own the science, and whoever owns the science will shape the narrative, not just of space, but of humanity's future. It's no longer about exploration, it's about control. And that means the moon isn't the final destination, it's the new ground zero. One day, not far from now, Earth will look up at the sky and see something new. An artificial light, faint but steady, glimmering from the lunar South Pole. Not a reflection of sunlight, but the glow of a reactor, the hum of technology, a silent claim made visible. And we will ask ourselves, when did we lose the moon? Maybe it was the day we stopped believing space was worth the cost. Maybe it was the moment we let others dream bolder, or maybe we never had it to begin with. Either way, the moon is changing, and with it, so is everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe.